My sister forced me to pretend I was the hired help at her wedding, making me serve drinks to hide her poor sibling. When she got divorced and went broke, I hired her as waitstaff at my wedding venue. Now she serves drinks at her ex-husband's new wedding while wearing staff badge. Hey everyone, before we dive in, I have a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and ensures you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. I never thought I'd be writing this, but I need perspective on something my sister Autumn just asked me to do at her upcoming wedding. I'm still trying to process if I'm overreacting or if this is as messed up as it feels. For context, I, 35M, run a successful business that I built from scratch. Not trying to brag, but it's important to know that I'm doing well for myself. My sister Autumn, 32F, is marrying into a wealthy family, and I guess that's where the problems start. Growing up, Autumn and I were incredibly close. We came from a modest background. Our parents worked hard, but we definitely weren't wealthy. We shared everything, from hand-me-down clothes to the single bathroom in our small house, but we had each other's backs, always. I remember countless nights where we'd sit on our cramped back porch, sharing dreams about our futures while splitting a bag of off-brand chips. Things started changing when Autumn met Hunter, 34M, at a charity gala 3 years ago. She was there because her friend got her a ticket through work. Hunter comes from old money, like really old money, the type where they have family portraits hanging in multiple houses kind of wealth. At first, everything seemed normal. Hunter seemed nice enough when I met him, though he did make some weird comments about being surprised by certain things about Autumn's background. I didn't think much of it at the time. Then yesterday, Autumn asked to meet for coffee. She was fidgeting with her cup the whole time, barely making eye contact. I knew something was off, but nothing could have prepared me for what she was about to ask. "I need you to work at my wedding," she said, staring into her untouched latte. I thought she meant she wanted my venue services, which would have been fine. But no, she wanted me to pretend to be part of the service staff, not attend as her brother, just blend in with the actual staff, serving drinks and staying invisible. I thought she was joking at first. She wasn't. Hunter's family, they're different, she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. They have expectations. She had told them certain things about our family that weren't exactly accurate. Turns out she's been crafting this elaborate backstory about our family for the past 3 years. In her version, our parents are retired art dealers who now travel the world. In reality, Dad worked at a hardware store and Mom cleaned houses. She told them we grew up in a different neighborhood, went to private schools we never attended, and took family vacations we could never afford. They can't know about, she gestured vaguely at me. Your business isn't exactly what they'd expect. I sat there feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. This was my sister, the same person who once punched a kid for making fun of my secondhand shoes. Now she was asking me to hide who I am because it didn't fit her manufactured narrative. "What about Mom and Dad?" I asked. She flinched. "They won't be there. I told Hunter's family they're in Europe. They're hosting an art exhibition in Paris." Our parents, who have never left the country, are supposedly hosting an art exhibition in Paris. The absurdity of it would be funny if it wasn't so heartbreaking. I didn't say anything for a long time. Autumn kept talking, explaining how it would just be for one day, how she'd make it up to me, how important this was for her future. All I could think about was how she used to proudly tell everyone I was her brother, even when I was going through my awkward teenage phase with terrible acne and braces. "Please," she said finally. "I know it's a lot to ask, but I can't risk losing this. His family, they wouldn't understand. They're different." I got up to leave, but she grabbed my arm. "Roman, please, I need you to do this for me, just once." Here's the thing, I could say no. I could refuse to participate in this charade. I could expose her lies right now. But seeing my sister, the person I grew up sharing everything with, literally begging me to hide who I am, it's devastating in a way I can't quite explain. I told her I needed time to think about it. She's been calling and texting nonstop since then. Our cousin Aaliyah, who knows the whole story, thinks I should refuse. My wife Angel says it's my choice, but she's clearly disgusted by the whole situation. The wedding is in 3 weeks. I have to decide soon. Part of me wants to do it just to see how far this goes. Another part wants to show up in a tuxedo and toast to my dear sister in front of everyone. But mostly, I just feel sad that it's come to this. Am I crazy for even considering this? How did we go from sharing a bag of cheap chips on our porch to her wanting me to serve drinks at her wedding? Update. It's been 6 months since my last post and a lot has happened. First, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. I ended up doing what my sister asked. I played server at her wedding. I know many of you thought I shouldn't, but sometimes you have to let people learn their own lessons. The wedding itself was exactly what you'd expect. I wore the staff uniform, served champagne, and watched my sister marry into the family she'd been so desperate to impress. Our parents weren't there, still supposedly in Paris. Autumn barely looked at me the whole night, except once when I almost bumped into Hunter's mother while carrying a tray. The panic in my sister's eyes in that moment told me everything I needed to know about her priorities. Fast forward to last week. I was going through paperwork at my venue when my assistant said my sister was here to see me. I hadn't heard from her since the wedding. aside from a brief thank you text that felt more like an afterthought than genuine gratitude. When Autumn walked into my office, I almost didn't recognize her. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. She looked like the sister I grew up with, before all the pretense. She sat down without being asked, twisted her hands in her lap, and started crying. Turns out Hunter found out about her lies, all of them. Not from me. Apparently one of his cousins ran into our mom at the grocery store. Mom, being mom, was her usual friendly self and started chatting about how proud she was of her daughter marrying such a nice young man and how she wished she could have been at the wedding. But Autumn said it was better if we didn't come. You can imagine how that conversation made its way back to Hunter's family. He's divorcing me, Autumn said, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her non-designer sweater. His family, they're not just cutting me off, they're making sure none of their friends will have anything to do with me either. I handed her a box of tissues and waited. There's always more to these stories. I can't find work anywhere, she continued. Every place I try, someone knows someone who knows Hunter's family. I've been living on my savings, but, she gestured at her worn-out clothes, I need help, Roman. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here was my sister, who 6 months ago couldn't bear to acknowledge me as family at her wedding, now sitting in my office asking for help. Part of me wanted to remind her of that day, of how she made me feel less than worthy of being her brother. But looking at her, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Honesty. I messed up, she said, her voice small. I messed up so bad, Roman. I got so caught up in trying to be what they wanted that I forgot who I actually was, who my family is. She looked around my office, taking in the awards on the wall, the photos of successful events. You built all this being exactly who you are. I tried to build something by being someone else, and look where that got me. I let the silence stretch for a minute, remembering all those nights on our old porch, sharing dreams and cheap snacks. Finally, I spoke. We do need more staff at the venue. Her head snapped up. What? Starting position. Same uniform you remember from your wedding. Same pay as everyone else. No special treatment. You want me to actually be staff? For real this time? I couldn't help but smile a little. Ironic, isn't it? But yes, real job. Real work. You'll start at the bottom like everyone else. Think you can handle that? She stared at me for a long moment, then let out a laugh that was half sob. I deserve that. This isn't about what you deserve, Autumn. It's about what you need. And right now, you need a job. I'm offering you one. Take it or leave it. Angel, my wife, thinks I'm being too nice. Aaliyah, our cousin, says it's perfect karma. I think it's somewhere in between. Autumn started yesterday. She's not great at carrying trays yet. Turns out it's harder than it looks when you're actually doing it for a full shift. But she's trying. Really trying. The interesting part? Hunter booked our venue for his wedding to his new fiancée last week. He doesn't know Autumn works here now. The wedding's in 2 months. I haven't decided if I'll schedule her to work that day or not. Part of me thinks it would be poetic justice. Part of me thinks it would be cruel. But then I remember how she didn't even hesitate to ask her own brother to pretend to be staff. And I wonder if maybe some lessons need to be learned the hard way. Final update. Well, Reddit, it happened. Yesterday was Hunter's wedding to Claire. And yes, I scheduled Autumn to work it. Before you call me cruel, let me explain how everything played out. The past 2 months have been interesting. Autumn's actually become one of our best staff members. She's reliable, works hard, and most surprisingly, she's humble. The designer clothes are gone, replaced by sensible shoes and a practical watch. She even moved in with our parents temporarily to save money, something the old Autumn would have rather died than do. I didn't tell her about Hunter's wedding at first. I waited until 2 weeks before, when staff schedules needed to be finalized. I called her into my office after her shift. You've got an event on the 15th, I said, sliding the schedule across my desk. She picked it up, scanned it, and went completely still. I watched her face cycle through about 5 different emotions before settling on resignation. Is this your revenge? She asked quietly. No, I replied. This is your job, unless you're telling me you can't be professional. She stared at the paper for a long moment. I can be professional. Then she looked up at me. I deserve this, don't I? This isn't about deserving anything. It's about choices. You made yours 6 months ago. I'm making mine now. Hunter is a paying client who booked our best venue. Your staff, that's all there is to it. The day of the wedding arrived. I made sure everything was perfect, not because it was Hunter's wedding, but because that's what we do for every event. Autumn showed up early, wearing her uniform, name tag perfectly straight. If she was nervous, she hid it well. The ceremony was outside, and I noticed Claire, Hunter's new bride, was nothing like what I expected. She wore a simple dress, laughed easily, and kept making sure all the vendors had water and breaks. During the reception setup, I overheard her telling Hunter they should have gone with something smaller, more intimate. He just smiled at her like she hung the moon. The moment finally came when Hunter spotted Autumn. She was carrying a tray of champagne for the reception entrance. He did a double take, then quickly whispered something to Claire. I tensed, ready to intervene if needed, but Claire just looked over, gave a small nod, and squeezed Hunter's hand. They both carried on like nothing happened. Halfway through the reception, Claire actually approached Autumn directly. I was nearby, pretending to check table settings. The service has been wonderful, Claire said warmly. Everyone's doing such an amazing job. Autumn, to her credit, maintained perfect composure. Thank you, ma'am. Can I get you anything? No, thank you. Claire paused, then added softly, It takes a strong person to be here today. I respect that. After Claire walked away, I saw Autumn duck into the storage room. I followed and found her sitting on a box of napkins, not crying, just sitting there. You okay? I asked. She looked up at me and laughed. Actually laughed. You know what's funny? She's exactly the kind of person I was pretending to be. Gracious, kind, genuine, except she is all those things, and I just wasn't. The rest of the night went smoothly. Autumn maintained her professionalism, even when Hunter's mother recognized her and nearly choked on her wine. The old Autumn would have crumbled or made a scene. This one just kept working, head held high. After the last guest left, I found Autumn collecting glasses. She looked tired but oddly peaceful. Still mad at me for scheduling you tonight? I asked. She shook her head. No, I needed this. Needed to see. She gestured around vaguely. All of it. What I tried so hard to be part of. It's not even that great, all that pretense, all those lies. And for what? They're just people. Rich people. But still just people. Some of them are actually decent, I said, thinking of Claire. Yeah, Autumn smiled slightly. Some of them are. Makes me feel even worse about lying. We finished cleanup in comfortable silence. As we were leaving, Autumn stopped me. Hey, Roman. Remember when we used to share those cheap chips on the porch and talk about our dreams? I nodded. Your dreams were always better than mine. You wanted to build something real. I just wanted to be something I wasn't. She adjusted her name tag. Thanks for giving me a chance to build something real, too. She turned to go, then paused. Oh, and Roman, next time someone asks who I am, I'm telling them I'm your sister, even if I'm wearing this uniform. I watched her walk to her car, not the luxury model she had 6 months ago, but a sensible used one she bought with her own money. The revenge I thought I wanted suddenly seemed small compared to watching my sister find her way back to herself. Mom called this morning. Apparently Autumn made breakfast for everyone, and they all ate together before she left for her morning shift, just like we used to do growing up. Sometimes karma works in strange ways. Sometimes it's not about revenge at all. Sometimes it's about finding your way home. But I still made her work her ex-husband's wedding, so I guess it's a little bit about revenge too. Story 2. My brother made me eat his leftover food, calling me the family garbage disposal. When he lost everything in his divorce, I let him move in. Now he eats week-old leftovers while watching me cook fresh meals for his ex-wife and kids. I never thought I'd be writing this, but after what happened at dinner last night, I need to get this off my chest. My brother Henry has always had this thing about food waste. Growing up, he'd constantly push his leftovers onto my plate, saying things like, Lucas will eat it, he's our family garbage disposal. What started as a childhood nickname somehow followed me into adulthood, and last night it all came to a head in the most unexpected way. For context, I'm the younger brother by 4 years. We grew up in a middle-class household where food wasn't exactly scarce, but Henry always acted like every morsel was precious, unless it was on his plate. Then it became my problem. Throughout our childhood, anytime he couldn't finish his meal, he'd slide his plate over to me with his smug look, saying, Can't let it go to waste, right? Our parents thought it was just brothers being brothers, but it went deeper than that. Henry would deliberately order too much food or pile his plate high at family gatherings, knowing he could guilt me into finishing it. You're doing us all a favor, he'd say, or, this is why you're the useful brother. I grew up thinking this was normal, that being the garbage disposal was just my role in the family. Last night, we were having our monthly family dinner. Henry's wife, Chloe, was oddly quiet, and their kids, Willow and Mila, kept exchanging these worried looks. Henry was in rare form, ordering enough food for a small army as usual. When he couldn't finish, he started pushing his plates toward me. Come on, Lucas, you know the drill, he laughed. But something in his voice was different. There was an edge to it I'd never heard before. Can't let good food go to waste in these economic times, right? I noticed Chloe's hand tighten around her glass. Willow, their teenage daughter, suddenly found her napkin fascinating. That's when I decided enough was enough. Actually, Henry, I'm good, I said, pushing the plate back. I'm not hungry. The silence that followed was deafening. Henry's face went through about 5 different emotions before settling on something between anger and panic. Since when do you turn down free food? He snapped. What, are you too good for leftovers now? Chloe abruptly stood up. I need some air, she said, heading for the restaurant's patio. After a moment's hesitation, I followed her, leaving Henry with the kids. What Chloe told me outside knocked the wind out of me. Turns out Henry's obsession with food waste wasn't about frugality at all. He'd been gambling away their savings for years, hiding the extent of their financial troubles. All those times he'd insisted on ordering extra food, he was using restaurant bills to cover up cash withdrawals. The leftovers he'd push on me were part of his elaborate scheme to hide his spending from Chloe. He's been doing this for years, she said, wiping her eyes. Every time I questioned a large charge, he'd say, but Lucas ate half of it, or we shared with Lucas. I felt awful about suspecting anything because you were always there, unknowingly backing up his story. I felt sick. All those years I'd been an unwitting accomplice in my brother's deception. Chloe showed me some of their bank statements on her phone. The numbers were staggering. Their savings were gone, and they were drowning in debt. I'm filing for divorce, she said quietly. I can't do this anymore. The girls need stability, and Henry needs help he won't accept from me. I sat with her for a while, processing everything. When we returned to the table, Henry was gone, and the kids looked exhausted. I drove them home, my mind racing with every memory of every meal, every leftover I'd eaten to help my brother maintain his lies. This morning my phone buzzed with a text from Henry. I need a place to stay. Chloe's lawyers contacted me. Don't tell Mom and Dad. I'm staring at that message right now, wondering how my role as the family garbage disposal led to this moment. Part of me wants to ignore it, to finally stop cleaning up Henry's messes. But he's still my brother, and those girls are still my nieces. I haven't responded yet. My finger's been hovering over the keyboard for an hour. The irony isn't lost on me. After years of forcing me to take his leftovers, Henry's life is now the thing he's asking me to help salvage. Should I let him stay with me? The apartment's big enough, but I can't help feeling like this is just another plate being pushed across the table, another mess I'm expected to clean up because I'm the useful brother. My phone just buzzed again. It's Chloe, asking if we can talk about the girls. I guess I have some decisions to make. Update. Thanks for all the support on my last post. It's been 3 months since Henry moved in, and things have taken an interesting turn. Remember how I mentioned my brother's habit of making me eat his leftovers? Well, karma has a way of serving things back on the same plate, literally. I let Henry move in under strict conditions. He pays a portion of rent, less than market rate, buys his own food, and most importantly, he gets help for his gambling. He agreed to everything, probably because he had nowhere else to go after Chloe got the house in the divorce settlement. The first week was awkward but manageable. Henry kept to himself, mainly eating takeout in his room. But as his money started running low, I noticed changes in his behavior. He'd hover around the kitchen when I cooked, making comments about how good everything smelled. Then came the hints. Remember how Mom always said sharing is caring? He'd say, eyeing my dinner plate. Or that looks like too much for one person. I stayed firm. Your food is your responsibility, Henry. We agreed on that. Things shifted about a month ago, when Willow, my 16-year-old niece, started visiting more often. She'd hang out at my place after school, allegedly to do homework. But I could tell something else was up. One evening, while Henry was at his mandatory counseling session, she opened up. Dad's been weird about food at Mom's house too, she said, pushing around the pasta I'd made her. He shows up during dinner time saying he was just in the neighborhood. Mom feels guilty and invites him in, but it's so uncomfortable. The next day, Chloe called me. She'd lost weight, she said, from the stress of everything. The girls weren't eating well either. They'd watch Henry pick at their leftovers, making comments about waste and money, and lose their appetites. That's when I had an idea. I started cooking extra portions, not for Henry, but for Chloe and the girls. Good, healthy meals they could reheat easily. Willow would take them home after her homework sessions, and sometimes I'd drop them off myself. The transformation in them was remarkable. Mila, my younger niece, started smiling again. Chloe looked less worn down. Henry noticed, of course. Hard to miss the smell of fresh cooking or the containers leaving the house. The first time he saw me packing up a still steaming lasagna, his face went through this complex journey of emotions. You're cooking for them? He asked, voice tight. You never cook for me. You're a grown man, Henry. You can cook for yourself. But they're eating my brother's food while I'm stuck with leftovers? The irony of his statement hung in the air between us. I just looked at him until it sank in. He stormed off to his room, but I heard him rummaging in the kitchen later that night, probably going through the week-old takeout containers in the fridge. Last week, things escalated. I was making Willow's favorite chicken dish when Henry came home early from his counseling session. He took one look at the food prep and lost it. This is cruel, Lucas. You're doing this to torture me, he said, gesturing at the ingredients. I'm your brother, living right here, eating cold leftovers while you cook fresh meals for my ex-wife, like you made me eat your leftovers all those years. I kept my voice calm. The difference is, I'm not forcing anyone to eat anything. Your choices brought you here, Henry. He went quiet after that, but I could feel him watching me cook. The next day I found him attempting to make scrambled eggs. They were burnt, but it was something. This morning, Willow told me Henry's been asking her to teach him some basic recipes. She's considering it, though she's understandably cautious. Chloe mentioned he's been more consistent with his counseling sessions, too. I'm not sure if it's the reality check of eating old takeout while watching fresh food leave the house, or if the counseling is finally getting through to him, but something's shifting. Yesterday, I caught him looking up cooking videos on his phone. The container of last night's dinner is still in the fridge, untouched. He could have eaten it, I wouldn't have minded. But maybe, just maybe, he's learning that some lessons are better served fresh than as leftovers. Chloe just texted, asking if I can teach Mila how to make her favorite mac and cheese this weekend. Henry overheard me agreeing to it, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't make a comment. Instead, he asked if he could watch too. I haven't answered yet. Part of me wants to believe he's changing, but I've cleaned up enough of his messes to be cautious. Then again, maybe the family garbage disposal can help recycle more than just leftover food this time. I guess we'll see what this weekend brings. At least now he knows how it feels to be on the other side of the plate. Final update. Well, everything came to a head last night, and I think it's time for the final chapter of this story. Fair warning, this isn't the revenge story some of you were hoping for, but karma had its own plans. Remember that cooking session I mentioned with Mila? It turned into something I never expected. Henry showed up as promised, but he brought our parents along, without warning. He'd apparently spent weeks telling them how I was psychologically torturing him with food, turning his kids against him, and destroying the family. Mom was already halfway through a lecture about family loyalty when she walked in. Then she stopped dead in her tracks. Through the kitchen window, she saw Willow and Mila in the backyard, setting up a surprise birthday celebration for Henry. See, what my brother didn't know was that for the past month, his daughters had been secretly learning to cook his favorite childhood meals. They wanted to show him that food could be about love, not control. They'd asked me to teach them, and Chloe had been supportive, hoping it might help heal some wounds. The girls had prepared everything: his favorite lasagna, our grandmother's recipe, the garlic bread he used to fight me for, and even that ridiculous 7-layer chocolate cake he always demanded for his birthdays. The same cake he used to eat half of and then forced me to finish because it would be a shame to waste it. Henry just stood there, looking at the setup through the window. Mom's lecture died in her throat. Dad, who'd been quietly fuming, moved closer to see what had stopped everyone. That's when Willow spotted them and came running in. "Oh no," she said. "You're early. We weren't ready." Her face fell, seeing everyone's tense expressions. "We wanted it to be a surprise." Mila followed, still wearing the world's okayest dad apron they'd bought as a gag gift. "We made everything ourselves," she said proudly, then hesitated, looking at the adults' faces. "Well, Uncle Lucas taught us, but we did the work." The silence was deafening. Then Mom asked the question that changed everything. "Girls, whose idea was this?" "Mine," said Willow. "Remember when we were little, Dad used to brag about how Grandma taught him to cook, but he never cooked for us. I thought maybe if we learned, we could cook together, like a family thing." Henry sat down heavily on my couch. For the first time, I saw him look truly ashamed. Not just caught out ashamed, but deep down, soul-searching ashamed. "You learned to cook, for me?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Yeah," Mila chimed in. "Uncle Lucas said you used to love cooking with Grandma before." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. We all knew. Before the gambling, before food became a way to hide money, before meals became transactions instead of connections, Mom looked at the spread of food, then at me, then at Henry. "All those times you said Lucas was being cruel about food," she started. "He was teaching my girls what I should have been teaching them," Henry interrupted. His voice cracked. "While I was trying to make him look bad to you, he was being the dad I should have been." That's when the dam broke. 25 years of food-related trauma came pouring out. Henry talked about how he started gambling, how food became his cover, how he used me to hide his tracks. He told our parents everything: the divorce, the counseling, the shame. Through tears, he looked at his daughters. "I don't deserve this birthday dinner." "No," I said, finally speaking up. "You don't, but they deserve a father who can sit down and share a meal with them. Without games, without manipulation, without making anyone feel like a human garbage disposal. They deserve that father. So be him." The dinner that followed was awkward, emotional, and healing in ways I never expected. Henry ate what his daughters cooked. No comments about portion sizes, no pushing plates around. He listened as they proudly explained how they learned each recipe. He even asked for seconds of the lasagna, admitting it was better than his attempts at Grandma's recipe had ever been. This morning, Henry handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for all the back rent he owed, plus a note. "Taking responsibility tastes better than leftovers. Thank you for not giving up on them." Or me. He's moving out next week. Found a small place closer to his counseling center. The girls are excited because it has a real kitchen, and they've already planned weekly family cooking nights. Chloe's cautiously optimistic about co-parenting with this version of Henry. As for me, well, I'm teaching a cooking class at the community center next month. Willow's idea. She said other kids might have parents who need to remember that food is about more than just eating. She's probably right. I kept the world's okayest dad apron, though. Hanging it in my kitchen feels like the right kind of reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's cooked with love and served fresh, right out of the oven. Mom called earlier to apologize for doubting me. She's coming over tomorrow, saying she wants to teach me Grandma's actual lasagna recipe. Apparently, the one Henry had been using all these years wasn't quite right. Funny how some things come full circle. I guess some leftovers are worth keeping after all. Just not the toxic ones.